Final checks before we go live. Welcome back, and ladies and gentlemen, this is the Stadium Pulse. It's a beautiful 27th of February. We are almost done with the second month of 2026, which just means we are one closer step, one little step. In the grand scheme of things, it all makes a difference to the next college football season. This is a college football show. If you've never seen this reveille hat, if you've never seen this mustache, if you've never seen the pennants behind me, Super Bowl champ, Seattle Seahawks pennant, welcome. My name is Tegan Randolph. This is a college football show where we talk about college football every single week, 52 weeks in a year, even during the offseason. Even when you think there isn't nothing to talk about with college football, maybe you want to go watch the NBA and watch a bunch of players try to tank for draft picks. Maybe you want to go watch golf, and I will be doing the same thing when the Masters come around. But college football is a year-round sport, and I'm here to prove why, because this is going to be a fantastic show. We're going to be talking about two main things on the show and two main things on the docket today. One is going to take a while. I'm going to go through the entire SEC. And I got a graphic pulled up to make it easy for you guys, an entire graphic where we're going to be talking about what teams have the best chance to win a national championship, not only in 2026, but for the rest of the decade. And then I'll have a little bit of things to say when we're talking about the eligibility conversation, really with Joey Aguilar, as I've seen some more takes from that. And I want to kind of give a more fleshed out opinion on it. There's a 5-minute video on the page where we talked about this at a high level when it was just breaking news. Now that we've been able to digest it, I want to really send out a more refined take, it better said. So no better way to start than just diving on in. I want to shout out Kretschmann Media. I want to shout out everyone who helps make this show possible. And I appreciate everyone who gives the show an opportunity. Let's go ahead and dive right on in. Let's set the stage. We are going to rank every SEC team based on the likelihood of them winning a national championship, not only in 2026, because we're looking at the overall program and what is the outlook over the next, 5 years or so. Well, let's just say maybe the Big Ten was able to win the entire decade, 10 straight Big Ten national championships, which for all intents and purposes, they've been able to go 3 straight. I understand Alabama won in 2020 if you want to, put an asterisk there. But if they won out for the rest of the decade, which SEC team is the likelihood or the most likely to break that streak? That's where I'm coming from, because it's a balancing act. Do I want to put Texas at number 1 because I think they're the most likely to win a national championship in 2026? Or do I want to bank on the fact that Georgia may not have the best chance to win it next season, but they're always going to be circling the national championship conversation? Those were the types of questions that I had to really think out and really try to be able to articulate the balancing act between those programs. Which coaches do I believe could elevate the program and the talent that could be coming in? And maybe is there an Indiana in the SEC, a team that may be seen as a bottom feeder, but could out of nowhere have the ability to build a national championship roster, which saying who is going to be the next Indiana has been a tale as old as time, and basically an old as time is 2 years in college football. But truthfully, I don't think that exists. It's such an anomaly, but you never know. Like I said, you never knew that Indiana could all of a sudden become a powerhouse in football. You never know. Maybe a Kentucky here could be a team that ends up being a powerhouse. So let's go ahead and dive in. And I'll show the full graphic at the very end, just so that you didn't lose track of which team landed where. But I will go through the entire list first, and then we'll recap and kind of go through and dissect the list. Now, this is the tier that I would classify as the Indianas. You have to have a Kurt Signetti walk into your building if you want a realistic chance to win the national title. And in last place, I have Mississippi State. This is not to disrespect Mario Taylor and Jeff Lebby. I think Mississippi State's a really fun program, but national championship upside, it's the one that I feel the least confident about out of any team in the SEC. It doesn't mean that I'm trying to disrespect them and say that they can't ever make a college football playoff, that they can't ever make a bowl game, even though it's felt like it's been like pulling teeth to get a comparable program that what we saw in the 2010s with Dak Prescott. And they were in the national championship picture. So there's a little bit of concern there that they could somehow get back to the mountaintop. I'm willing to bank that it's more of an anomaly than something that could be replicated in the 2020s. 15, I have Arkansas. This one is a little bit of concern from my end just because Arkansas has money, but it seems like the organization from the top to the bottom just really cannot get alignment correct. And we talked a lot about alignment when the Lane Kiffin debacle was going on with Ole Miss and LSU, that you need alignment from the top to the bottom. It doesn't feel like this is a program that has true alignment, and that could be for the next 15 years, that could be for the next 2 years. These things can change very quickly, or they could change at a snail's pace. So with Arkansas and the outlook of what they have with Ryan Silverfield, who is a coach that I just didn't take a lot of inspiration that this was going to be the guy that was going to be able to turn around Razorback football. Not to mention, the SEC schedule makers seem to have some sort of vendetta against Arkansas, that they're always going to have this ridiculously difficult schedule. So maybe they're going to always be working behind the 8 ball, and I have them at number 15. At 14 is a team that I think a lot of people would actually have at 16. Kentucky, mainly for the fact of what their outlook is looking like right now with Will Stein, the transfers that came in, Kenny Minchie. We've talked about it a ton on this show, and I'll just repeat for the people that haven't seen this show for the first time. I do think Kentucky football is in that territory and in that space that we talked about, maybe with who could be the next Vanderbilt, who could be the team that comes out of nowhere and actually has more resources to apply to football. Very similar with Vanderbilt. A lot of people are like, oh, someone's just going to snatch up Clark Lee. Diego Pavia is going to go to the NFL or UFL, and they're going to fall off. And that didn't end up being the case. They have a wealth of resources at Vanderbilt. I think there's a ton of resources at Kentucky. This is a program that was able to support some of the most expensive rosters in basketball, very similar with Indiana, who has an incredible amount of money backed with an alumni base that is massive, but the focus was always on basketball. A little bit of winning to football can absolutely change that, because it's like you're trying to start a fire, and you know that if you start the fire with football, the money that's going to come in and the size of that fire is going to be, it's going to absolutely dwarf anything that could be built with basketball and baseball. That doesn't mean I'm trying to disrespect those sports. I love college baseball. I love college basketball, but where is the money coming from? It's football. And I think Kentucky could easily be one of those teams that rises up this ranking very quickly, and it may just come out of nowhere. At number 13, I have South Carolina. South Carolina, it was so difficult to try to figure out where they could land. I feel better about them than Kentucky, but I don't really say that with much confidence. But I can't put them above the teams I'm about to say. They're in a weird state of flux where they have this incredible amount of talent in 2026. And that's partially why they have the high ranking that they have currently, because you could argue they could be at number 15 in terms of national championship picture. But when you have a talent like Lenore Sellers, Nick Harbor, Dylan Stewart, that three-headed monster, if all of a sudden everything clicks together, and Shane Beamer is a damn good coach, I believe they got Kendall Briles as their new offensive coordinator, maybe it all clicks together. That is enough upside for them to be at number 13 for me. A team that we've already talked about a little bit is Vanderbilt. I have Vanderbilt at number 12. I think Vanderbilt is a team that I'm so fascinated what is going to be their next evolution. Could it be a team that they're in that Missouri tier that could, all of a sudden be in an SEC championship one year, but then always be really competitive? Or are they going to bottom out and get back to where we all remember Vanderbilt being? I don't think that's going to be the case. I think now that they have a actual spark and an actual investment into their athletic program, basketball is doing well. Baseball has been their MO for a very long time. This is a school that, I mean, I've lived right next to the school for a very long time. This is a school and a program that seems to be growing, and their trajectory continues to rise up. And I can't really bank against that. I think this is going to have to take a meteor coming down and striking the campus for me to not believe in Vanderbilt moving forward. They got Jared Curtis. He could develop into a superstar and maybe be better than what we saw with Diego Pavia. I mean, truly put in perspective of what Vanderbilt was able to accomplish in 2025. They had the runner up in the Heisman. They were on the outside looking in of a college football playoff run. And it was what, year 2 or 3 with Clark Lee? I could be completely incorrect on that. And I want to correct myself right now, so I apologize, because I'm going to be upset if I don't get this correct. Come on, Wikipedia. Work with me. Not to mention he's a alma mater of Vanderbilt. Yeah, he's been here since 2021. Oh, so it's year 5? Year 5. Apologies. Clark Lee's not going anywhere. Alma mater. He has the trajectory of the program. I don't think there's much that needs to be said here. At 11, I have Missouri. Eli Drinkowitz has been someone that has been rumored to go try to find another job, maybe upskill the resources available to him. But he also seems like he's very happy at Missouri. And it's going to have to take a large job to offer him the job, because I think he wanted the Florida. I think he wanted LSU. He wanted all these big programs to open up. He didn't get picked. And that's not to say that he can't ever find a job that is better than Missouri, but he's kind of in no man's land. It's not a bad enough job for you to say that, yeah, there's a ton of teams I can, take that next jump to. And then the teams that are going to open up, those don't open up every single cycle. And I don't think next year's coaching cycle is going to have a Florida, an LSU, a Penn State, all these big time programs opened up. I don't think we're going to see the case. So I'm banking on the fact that you're going to have Eli Drinkowitz, who is always going to pump out a very consistent, a very physical program. Have they ever been able to get over the hump? Can they win the big game? That's been the question mark. And so that's why they find themselves at number 11. At number 10, I have Auburn. Auburn, it's in a very unique circumstance. You could make the argument that Vanderbilt and Missouri are in a better spot than what Auburn is currently. This is a bank and this is a trust in what they can build with Alex Golesh. I think they have alignment with the administration. I think they have the resources to build a very damn good football program. They were able to get an incredible amount of talent, but they weren't able to develop it. They weren't able to execute, which you hear coaches talk about all the time. I think Auburn is in a really solid spot that if they hit on the head coach, which I think they did, they're going to be in a fantastic position for the rest of the decade. Auburn has national championship pedigree, whether you like it or not, whether it's been 15 plus years that they've won a national title. It doesn't matter, because they have the pedigree, they have the resources, they know exactly what that looks like. That administration is always going to be chasing that feeling. Doing something that you've done 15 years ago is already an advantage versus someone that has never done it before, in a program that has never done it before. And I think Auburn's in a damn good position to get back to the mountaintop. At number 9, I have Ole Miss. Ole Miss is low. I can even admit that. I can even say that Ole Miss is low for what they have in 2026, which is Trinidad Chambliss. You could argue the number 1 returning quarterback in all of college football, an absolute playmaker. This is where we start to have the conversation of the balancing act of, do you want to bank on what they could be in 2026, or do you want to trust what they could be for the next 5 seasons? And what I'm banking on with Ole Miss at number 9 is, truthfully, I'm banking on the fact that what we saw this past college football playoff run, that was their peak. That was their best chance. And I don't think they will have another chance like it for a very long time. The coaching staff, the offensive talent, there's so much different outside of Trinidad Chambliss, Pete Golding, and Kawan Lacey that I can't really bank on the fact that they're going to be able to get right back to the mountaintop in 2026. And then for the rest of the decade, I don't know what to expect, especially when you take away. I understand he wasn't the interim guy because he just automatically became the permanent guy. But when the shine of what was Lane Kiffin's team goes away for Pete Golding, what can you expect from him? I'm not saying it's going to be bad. I just don't think it's going to be great. And you have to be great if you want to be high on this list. Oklahoma, I have at number 8. Oklahoma, I think, is in a very solid spot. You could make an argument they could be as high as 6 on this list. Oklahoma with Brent Venables, I believe they've figured out the offensive coordinator position. The question is, can you get the quarterback right? Because you have about one more year of John Mateer, whether that is going to be a really good year with Mateer, who has an incredible amount of talent, but a ton of volatility. It becomes the question, how many years is it going to take before the expectation of what Oklahoma football is, which is national championships? How many more years are you going to give the offense to catch up to what's been a great defense? That's the big question I have with Oklahoma. Florida, I have at number 7. Same thing I said about Auburn, where I think if you got the head coach right, and I think Florida, if we're talking about maturity as a program and having all the bells and whistles that you need to build a national championship, kind of like how we talked about with Texas A&M for a very long time, you have all the resources in the world. If you got the head coach right, you have a national championship level team and program. I think Florida is a little bit further ahead than what Auburn is. That's why I have them so far ahead compared to Auburn at number 10. Florida, I believe in John Summerall. I believe the talent on the roster is damn good. I like the coaching stuff. I like the coaching hires. I like that the fact that they're in Florida. I like all the different pieces that would build to a national championship. And so if they got the head coach right, I could say that I was early on Florida, to be honest with you. Tennessee's at number 6. Maybe this is me just planting my flag and saying, why are we just not believing in Josh Heupel? Why are we just sitting here and trying to have the conversation of, well, if Josh Heupel doesn't get it done this year, we may have to put the hot seat on him. It doesn't make sense to me. It frankly doesn't make any kind of sense that we are just so anti Josh Heupel here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Truthfully, I think when we look at Josh Heupel's resume, he has been able to get this program completely turned around. And if he finally gets some continuity in that quarterback room and a defense that has been surprisingly good with a really good defense staff, pumping out NFL talent after NFL talent, I think they're in a fantastic position to launch themselves into national title contention. I mean, that was the conversation with Hendon Hooker. Obviously, they've been chasing that feeling ever since. But I think continuity in the quarterback room could really launch themselves into national title contention. I'm not off of Tennessee. I still think they're going to be a damn good program for years to come. At number 5, I have Alabama. This is where the list got really hard. And I think I have to say number 4 to really speak my piece about Alabama. At number 4, I have Texas A&M. Head-to-head, Alabama versus Texas A&M, coach to coach. I have Mike Elko higher than Kalen DeBoer. I think it's very, very close. I think what you saw with Mike Elko in a bad situation entering it, obviously you had the recruiting pool, the resources, but they had just given up an entire $70 million to get rid of a coach. And you have to get the program that is in a high pressure situation and get tangible results as soon as possible. In 2 years, he's been able to do that versus Kalen DeBoer, who, yes, I think we can all admit there were some unexpected challenges with taking over the Alabama job outside of the expectations of Nick Saban. I'm talking resources and some of the nuances around NIL. I just think what you've been able to see with Mike Elko relative to his situation, he's been able to do more. I think the program's a little bit further along. Then you add in the aspects that I think Alabama is still struggling with, which is the funding, the NIL alignment. You don't have that problem with Texas A&M. I think I could confidently say that A&M is further along and more ready to win a national championship sooner rather than later compared to Alabama. Now, they're right next to each other on the list, guys. So if you wanted to put Alabama and you feel like they are further along, completely understand it. But I don't think Alabama's winning a national championship next season. And I'm not predicting A&M to do that either, but I think they're closer to doing it. And I think they're closer to doing it over the next couple of seasons. LSU's at number 3. Shouldn't come to much of a surprise. I don't think there's much to talk about here. This is just trusting that Lane Kiffin's going to win one. I don't think that should be a hot take. Is it going to happen next year? Probably not. Is it going to happen the year after? Maybe. And I think as he really starts to put his thumbprint onto the program with the resources he has, there's a reason why he was as sought after as he was. It shouldn't come to much of a surprise that LSU's at number 3. More times than not, if you're the head coach at LSU, you win a national championship sooner or later. Number 2, I have Texas. This is the dynamic between Texas and Georgia. Georgia is number 1. Do I want to bank on Steve Sarkisian in Texas to win the national championship in 2026? Or do I want to bank that Kirby Smart, the best coach in college football, could win one over the next 3 to 5 years? I chose Georgia. I think Texas is going to be damn good. I think they're going to lead the entire country in first round talent. I think they have every tool in the toolbox to win a national championship in 2026. What that looks like in 2027, I don't know. And I don't know what it's going to look like for Georgia post Gunner Stockton, but I know what I have with the head coach. I know what I have with a winning pedigree and a coach that is going to lift up every stone possible to get back to the mountaintop. And they, in their down years, have been able to win the SEC and beat Steve Sarkisian head to head. Shouldn't come to much of a surprise. I have Georgia at number 1. Let's take a look at the entire list before we move on to some eligibility conversations. Let me get rid of the banner so you guys can truly see it. As I mentioned, I think if you were to critique my list and I was to predict what you were going to say, I could hear the conversation if you wanted to say Alabama over A&M. I think you could easily say Tennessee could be dropped down as low as 8, maybe even 9 if you're really high on Ole Miss and you think Pete Golding is going to be able to replicate the performance of what we saw with Lane Kiffin. I think you can make an argument that Missouri could be a little bit too low, and I'm a little bit too high on the 2 schools that changed head coaches in Auburn and Florida. But even with that in mind, I feel very confident that number 1 is Georgia. I just am. And I think A&M is going to have to be high. LSU has to be high, regardless of how you feel about Lane Kiffin emotionally. He's going to be able to build programs. It's just what he does. And so this is the list. So take a look at it. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you would change. Just a quick reminder, it's not just for 2026. It is for the rest of the decade. But let's keep it pushing. Let's get the banner back. Need a sip of water. All right. Let's talk about the eligibility a little bit. I don't even have notes for this. This is just going to come straight off the dome, straight from the heart. Joey Aguilar's eligibility should not be this big of a conversation. And I don't think it is. I think a lot of people are focused on the NFL draft, but if you really get a pulse on what people are talking about with college football, outside of some rankings that may be released by like Fox Sports or whatever college football creator, because that's the time of year, there's been some conversations about eligibility in general and what is the fix? What can we do to fix this? I think there has been a what can we call it? A mixed bag of decisions over the course of 5 years. And that's part of the problem is there's not this continuity. There's so many decisions that you can look back and say, this guy should have gotten it because of X reason, but then you go to one case over and it's the exact same reasoning, but a completely different result. There's no continuity here. When we talk about the Joey Aguilar situation, truthfully, they made the right decision. They made the right decision with Aguilar not getting an extra year, and it's better for Tennessee. Is it riskier? Absolutely. I'm sure if we had Josh Heupel on today's show and I got to ask him off camera and say, what do you think the outlook of your program would be, better or worse with Joey Aguilar? I think he would say better. But from my purview and how I'm looking at it at a 50,000 point view, I think for the long term, it's going to be better for Tennessee to start building continuity with that quarterback room. As I believe I said, it was the 5th straight year that they would be having a new transfer come in or a guy that's been waiting in the wings, Nico Iamaleava, all this different stuff. You will be able to build continuity, whether it is Brandon Faison or George McIntyre. I'd hope either of those guys are at least starting for 2 years. Faison probably for multiple, maybe even 3 years. I think this is going to help Tennessee in the long run. The real talking point when we look at the eligibility, though, because that was a sidebar, that was another piece on just Tennessee. Because if you're a Tennessee fan upset about it, I want you to know, I think you're better off with this. Is then we go to the more, I guess not recent, but the second recent eligibility conversation, which is Trinidad Chambliss. The Trinidad Chambliss thing is not comparable to Joey Aguilar's. 2 very different cases. A lot of people are just treating them very similar and saying that they're the exact same thing. They're not. What Joey Aguilar was trying to actually say was saying that the JUCO years that he played football should not count towards his eligibility. Wrong. Nope. You're probably wondering how we got here. That's how it's always been. I understand that in this world of college basketball where we're having former G League players, potential NBA players trying to play, and the lines have never been more blurred on what is eligibility nowadays. I'm sorry. And this is not coming from an athlete. I'll tell you that right now. If you want to close your laptop because I am not a former JUCO or Division I athlete speaking on this, I hear you. If that's how you want to go about your business, completely fine. I am at least educated on and have spent time understanding this just from the nuances of it. JUCO is a risk you take to try to get yourself back to the Division I level. It just is. There's so many great players in the world of college football. Best example I can think of is Cam Newton, for many different reasons, had to go to JUCO. And a lot of it wasn't football related reasons. Got to remember, he was a former 5-star kid at Florida, JUCO, Auburn. That was his journey. And there's a reason why Auburn didn't get multiple years of Cam Newton. Obviously, the NFL draft, but he didn't have any other years of eligibility. If I'm remembering that correctly. This is just a part of the sport. You don't just get to bend the rules because you want to keep playing and keep playing. A lot of people focus on COVID. It's just because, truthfully, the problem isn't the COVID years, and it's not the fact that you got this extra year of eligibility. Maybe it was the first domino, but the first domino was pointing to the larger problem, which there's no real decision makers. The NCAA will pick and choose when it wants to stick their nose into a problem and then say, "Ha, we made that decision. That was us." It ends up being a wrong one. I think Tez Walker was a great example, the former wide receiver out in North Carolina. And then 90% of the other decisions basically go unseen, or they don't care about it, so they basically let a judge decide. And then there's so much manipulation around it. My point being, what Joey was trying to do was trying to say JUCO use doesn't count, very similar to what Diego Pavia argued and all this other stuff. Chambliss had like a real argument that he said, my red shirt year, I had a red shirt year in Division II football for Ferris State, and it was ignored. There's proof of it. There is color commentators talking about how he is redshirted, X, Y, and Z. Here's the proof. What is your decision? And they denied him. And so he fought and he fought and he fought, and he got his year of eligibility because it was ignored evidence. You could see how that's different. And frankly, if you want to be of the case and believe that, well, both of them shouldn't got it, I would love to hear the argument on why Trinidad didn't have an argument. I want to know why you don't think he should have gotten his year. I'm of the belief, and it's on this page, that he should have just gone to the NFL draft, because his stock is never going to be as high as it is right now for I would guess, a sub 6 foot quarterback that doesn't have the craziest arm, but really solid athleticism. I mean, maybe at best he's Russell Wilson. And that's a very specific, pointed scenario. I think this is a dumb conversation. The whole Trinidad Chambliss, Joey Aguilar thing. People are overcomplicating it. It's really not this complicated. Aguilar should not have gotten that extra year of eligibility because you set a precedent for thousands of JUCO players to really turn around and say, oh, we got an extra year. We got another extra year, when that doesn't need to be the case. I'm not against great players coming back to college football. I said it for Chambliss. Do I believe he should have gone to the NFL draft? Yeah. Am I mad that he's coming back to college football and he's going to be on my television screen? Absolutely not. I wouldn't have been mad about Joey Aguilar coming back either. I'm not against good football players playing football. But when it is your time to move on, like it's been for so many decades prior, it's time to move on. That's the truth. And with that in mind, guys, we just hit the 30-minute mark. I am going to go enjoy this lovely day in Tennessee. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe. I will see you guys on Sunday.